Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Luis. I'm a third year medical student from the Ateneo School of Medicine and Public Health, and in this video, I'll be talking about how to apply to med school here in the Philippines. With an estimated 50 medical schools here in the Philippines, spanning from all the way north in Cagayan to down south in Davao, it can be very confusing for a lot of students to know which schools to apply to, especially if they have no one to ask advice from. So that's why I'm making this video for all the aspiring medical students out there to give them advice on which medical schools to apply to. When applying to medical school here in the Philippines, you ideally want to narrow down your choices to around 3 to 5 schools. The reason for this is that applying to multiple schools can be very costly as the fees and different documents that you need to compile accumulate. Not to mention the amount of time that you'll save by having to not comply with so many different requirements from school to school. By doing this, you reduce the cost, but at the same time, give yourself enough flexibility to choose the right school for you when it comes to choosing the school that you're accepted to. So to help you decide which schools you should apply to, I'm gonna share the criteria that I used to choose the schools that I applied to back in 2018. But by no means should these criteria serve as the only basis for you choosing the schools for you to apply to, but serve as a nice template that you can modify to better suit your needs. The schools that I applied to back in my senior year of college were the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery, the UP College of Medicine, and the Ateneo School of Medicine and Public Health. I chose these schools primarily because of the prestige behind their name and the quality of education that I knew they were known for. But besides this, I also considered the financial aspect. Although studying medicine here in the Philippines is quite cheap compared to other countries like in the US, it's still really expensive for a lot of families here in the country. So depending on your financial situation, it's something you have to heavily take into consideration when applying to state-run and private medical schools here in the Philippines. The benefit of attending state-run medical schools like the UP College of Medicine and Western Visayas State University is that the government subsidizes your tuition, which saves you hundreds of thousands of pesos over the course of your entire education. However, this does not mean that you can't avail of similar benefits when applying to private universities. Schools like UERM, St. Luke's College of Medicine, and the Ateneo School of Medicine and Public Health have scholarship and financial aid programs to help support students from less well-off backgrounds in order to help them attend their schools. I'll be making a separate video on the different scholarships and financial aid that you can avail as a medical student because I feel it's something that a lot of medical students need to know. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Another thing to consider when applying to medical school is the type of curriculum offered by your school. Most schools in the Philippines offer the traditional 4-year program where you spend 3 of those years in the classroom learning the different medical topics and 1 year as a clerk where you rotate at different hospital departments within your partner hospitals. After graduating, you spend 1 year as an intern at the hospital of your choice before eventually taking the board exam. And this is the case for most medical schools around the country. However, there are schools that offer a 5-year program where the internship is integrated into the curriculum and you graduate after your internship instead. Schools that offer this 5-year program are the UP College of Medicine and the Ateneo School of Medicine and Public Health, where you spend your internship year at the hospital prescribed by the school. But besides just offering MD programs, there are schools that offer dual degree programs such as the MD and MBA of the Ateneo School of Medicine and Public Health, where you not only get your medical degree, but also a Master's in Business Administration within the 5 years. And there's also the MD PhD program of the UP College of Medicine, where after 7 or 8 years, you graduate with a medical degree as well as a PhD in molecular medicine. I'll leave links in the description if you're interested in learning more about these dual degree programs. And speaking of degree programs, you also have to consider the teaching style of the school. Most medical schools here in the Philippines follow the traditional model where there are separate subjects for classes like pathology, microbiology, pharmacology, and physiology. On the other hand, there are schools like the Ateneo School of Medicine and Public Health and the UP College of Medicine that use a module-based system that integrates all these different subjects per organ system. There are pros and cons to each system, but what matters is that you choose the program that best fits your learning style. I'll be releasing videos over the next few weeks detailing what it's like to study in these 2 different curriculums, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. Aside from the academic factors, you also have to look into the social and environmental factors of each school, such as the type of people you'll meet and the extracurricular activities available to you. Because I think that these factors will contribute to not only your survival, but also helping you thrive as a medical student. Because it is my personal belief that we need to have an outlet while in med school so that we don't get torn down by the stress of having to study for all our exams. In addition to this, you have to also be aware of what the school's ideals and principles are, and this can easily be checked by going to the About Us page of any of your prospective school's websites. Because when you're gonna spend at least 4 years of your life in an academic institution, it's important to at least know that the ideals and principles that they value are aligned with your own, or at least will support you towards the goals you want to achieve. For example, in the ASMPH website, its mission and vision essentially state that its aim is to train us to be doctors of the future that not only focus on curing disease, but also addressing issues within our healthcare system. This, coupled with the dual degree that they offer, is what ultimately led me to choosing this school because I knew that it would equip me and train me to become the doctor I want to be in the future. Last but certainly not least, you have to consider the type of lifestyle you'll be living while attending medical school. For example, will you prefer a school that's closer to home? Or will you be okay with traveling to go to your med school or even outside of your province for my viewers who are not based here in Metro Manila? Because even if you live in Metro Manila, the amount of traffic that you'll experience traveling between cities is so much that it can take up a lot of your time. That's why a lot of medical students tend to find accommodations nearer to where they study, such as dormitories, condo units, or even renting a townhouse with their friends so that they can decrease the amount of time spent going to and from class. And if you do decide to stay in a dormitory or rent a condominium unit for your stay in med school, be sure to check on what stores are available in your area so that you can be sure that you'll be able to buy all your daily necessities. So let's assume you've already chosen the med schools you want to apply to for the upcoming school year. So the next step from that is to prepare and to take the NMAT, as the NMAT is the one requirement that all medical school applicants have to take and submit the results to for the schools they want to apply to. I've made videos in the past covering my tips on how to best prepare for the NMAT and the strategies that I applied when taking the actual test. So if you're interested in those, I'll leave links down in the description and also in the upper right corner of your screen. The next thing you need to do is to fill out all the forms and acquire all the relevant documents for applying to the schools that you've chosen. Requirements differ from school to school, but there are certain items that almost all schools will request, such as your birth certificate, your transcript of records, and of course your NMAT scorecards. For the requirements specific to each school, I recommend you check out the websites of those prospective schools so that you can find out what specifically you need to prepare. For example, ASMPH requires you to prepare an essay as well as letters of recommendation from specific faculty members of your institution. Given it can take some time to collect all these documents, it's best to be aware if they're required so that you can request them at an earlier time. I'll leave links down in the description of some of the application requirements of different medical schools here in the Philippines. After you've submitted the application requirements to the school, you're either going to be waiting for the final list of accepted applicants or for the shortlisted list of applicants who are going to be interviewed for the school. Out of the 3 schools I applied to, 2 required interviews, UP College of Medicine and ASMPH. In my opinion, interviews are a way for the school to determine who you are as a person, since it can't be easily prepared for compared to writing an essay. My tip for you guys who are going to undergo an interview for medical school is to be aware of the information you said about yourself in the documents you submitted to the school, as well as the type of traits that the school values in its students. Show them that you're a fit for the school while at the same time still being true to yourself, because they can tell if you're being genuine or not. I recommend asking a parent or a friend to help you practice different interview questions so that on the day of the interview, you're more likely to be calm, cool, and collected. After that, all that's left is to wait for the application results. If you pass, congratulations! You made it one step closer to acquiring that title of doctor. However, if you don't get in, that doesn't mean it's the end of the line. You can submit an appeal letter to the school to ask them to reconsider you, and this is especially helpful if you're waitlisted, because if a student who's accepted doesn't take their slot, you have a chance of taking their slot instead. And if that fails, you can still apply the following year. I met several people who failed to get into med school on their first try, but when applying again the following year, they got into the school of their choice. So just because you fail in your first attempt doesn't mean that all hope is lost for you. So I hope you found my advice and tips useful for your application to med school. If you have any questions that this video didn't cover, feel free to contact me on social media at ChinoyMD on Twitter and Instagram. And lastly, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content like this one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.